Some wars are lost in thunder. Others are lost in silence. Tonight's story begins with a quiet moment. No swords clashing, no cannons firing. Just a single decision made by a confident leader who believed the world would behave the way it always had before. And that belief changed everything. Imagine standing at the peak of success, where nearly every gamble you have ever taken has paid off, where your name alone can make kingdoms hesitate. That is exactly where Napoleon Bonaparte stands in the year 1812. According to historian Andrew Roberts, Napoleon controls or dominates almost all of continental Europe. His armies have won battle after battle through speed, precision, and daring. So when Russia refuses to fully cooperate with his economic system, Napoleon does not hesitate. He decides on war. Here is the dangerous part. He believes it will be quick. He believes that one strong campaign, one decisive victory, will force Russia to surrender just like Austria, Prussia, or Italy before it. This assumption is so comfortable, so familiar, that it barely feels like a risk at all. But history has a habit of punishing comfortable assumptions. Before we go any further, let me pause for just a moment. If you enjoy calm, immersive stories like this, stories you can listen to while resting or winding down, you might want to gently tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps this quiet corner of history reach more people who love slow storytelling. And if you feel like it, leave a comment telling me where you are listening from right now. I always enjoy reading them. Now take a breath, settle in, and let us continue. Napoleon crosses into Russian territory with more than 600,000 soldiers, the largest army Europe has ever seen at that time. This number comes from military records, studied by historians such as Adam Zamoyski. It looks unstoppable on paper. Columns of men stretch beyond the horizon. Drums beat. Flags ripple in the summer air. Yet hidden inside this massive force is a fragile truth. The army is designed for speed, not distance. For living off conquered land, not empty wilderness. For short wars, not long ones. Napoleon does not prepare for a campaign deep into Russia. He does not plan for months without supplies. He does not plan for an enemy who refuses to fight when expected. That is the first mistake. Not a dramatic failure, just a quiet belief that tomorrow will look like yesterday. And as the Russian army begins to retreat, instead of attacking, that belief will soon be tested in ways Napoleon never imagined. Because the most dangerous enemy is not always the one charging toward you. Sometimes it is the one walking away. As the weeks stretch on, something unsettling begins to happen. The land ahead grows quieter. Villages appear abandoned.
The Duke's influence.
Wells are dry.
Indeed.
Fields are
I
burned
heard the
black,
king
not by
refused his petition
accident,
yesterday.
but by design. The Russian army is not running. It is withdrawing with intention. This strategy, often described by historians like Dominic Levin, is simple and ruthless. Leave nothing behind. Take the food. Destroy the shelter. Let the invading army carry its hunger with it. Napoleon expects to live off the land, as he has done across Europe. But here the land refuses to cooperate. Imagine marching for days under the summer sun boots, sinking into dust stomachs, tightening with hunger, and every village ahead already empty. No bread, no cattle. Just smoke drifting where life used to be. Soldiers begin to joke darkly that the Russians are fighting with matches instead of muskets. And here is the second mistake. Napoleon keeps advancing. He believes retreat means weakness. He believes that if he presses forward just a little more, the Russian army will finally turn and fight the decisive battle he wants. Many commanders before him have thought the same thing. Very few have been rewarded for it. By late summer, the supply lines stretch hundreds of miles behind the army. Horses die by the thousands.
Did you hear the news
Wagons
from the tower?
break. Men grow
now.
thinner, quieter. According to records from the French army itself,
does not look pleased
desertion
today.
increases steadily, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Let me ask you something.
Silence, man.
If your enemy refuses to fight, do you chase them? Or do you stop and ask why? Napoleon does not ask. He pushes toward Moscow, convinced that capturing the heart of Russia will end the war. It is a logical thought, at least by European standards. Capitals fall, wars end. That is how the world has worked for him so far. But Russia is not playing by European rules. When Napoleon
was too
finally
high.
reaches Moscow, he expects negotiation. He expects surrender. What he finds instead is a city almost completely empty. And soon after, flames rise into the night sky. Moscow burns. Historians still debate exactly who set the fires, but the result is undeniable.
Is there danger?
The city becomes unlivable.
We're in the city. Take
No
this map, it
shelter,
shows the way
no
out.
supplies, no victory celebration. Just smoke, ashes, and silence. Napoleon has marched his army to the edge of triumph, only to discover that triumph has nowhere to sit. And as the first cold
It is a
winds
long
begin to
wait,
whisper
but
through the
necessary
ruined
for
streets,
salvation.
the cost of continuing
For by
forward
grace alone
becomes
are we saved,
impossible to
through
ignore.
faith,
Because
and
from
that
this
not of
moment on,
ourselves.
the war is no
It is the
longer
gift of
about
God.
conquering territory. It becomes a battle against time itself. What follows next is not marked by a single dramatic order, but by hesitation. Napoleon waits in Moscow. He waits for a letter that never arrives, a peace offer, a messenger from the Russian Tsar. Anything that will turn this burned city into a bargaining table. Historian Adam Zamoyski notes that Napoleon remains in Moscow for more than a month, convinced that silence must eventually break. But silence becomes the message. Outside the ruined city, the seasons begin to turn. The first frosts arrive earlier than
My
expected.
judgment stands.
Nights grow longer.
Untested, Your Grace.
Breath turns visible in the air. And still no surrender comes. This is the third mistake. Napoleon delays retreat. In past
Did you deliver the
campaigns,
message?
timing has been his greatest
Walls
weapon.
have ears. We
He
must wait
moves
for her
fast,
signal.
strikes early, and leaves before conditions turn against him. But in Moscow, confidence whispers that there is still time, that winter can be outrun, that his army, seasoned by years of victory, can endure just a little longer. Soldiers begin dismantling wooden buildings for warmth. They sleep among ashes and collapsed roofs. Food is scarce. Horses already weakened struggle on frozen ground. According to French military diaries preserved from the campaign, men trade gold buttons for a piece of bread. Some laugh at the absurdity. Others stop laughing altogether. Ask yourself this: when does patience become stubbornness? Napoleon finally gives the order to leave, but the moment has passed. The retreat begins not as a maneuver, but as an escape. Temperatures drop sharply. Modern climate research suggests that the winter of 1812 is among the coldest of the century. Snow buries roads. Frostbite spreads faster than discipline. The army that once filled the horizon now stretches thin, breaking into fragments. Cannons are abandoned. Wagons freeze in place. And the Russian forces who had avoided battle for months begin to close in. What was once a choice becomes a trap. And as the Grande Armée moves westward through snow and hunger, The consequences of that single delayed decision begin to multiply faster than any general can control. Because retreat when it comes too late can be more dangerous than advance. By now, the retreat has lost any sense of order. What was once the most disciplined army in Europe moves like a shadow of itself, guided less by command than by instinct. And then the road leads to a river. The Berezina. It is late autumn, and the water is choked with ice. Russian forces press in from both sides, sensing the moment they have waited for. According to military historian David Chandler, this is where the retreat should finally collapse. The enemy is close. The river is freezing. Panic hangs in the air. Yet here something unexpected happens. French engineers work through the night, waist deep in icy water, building makeshift bridges from wood and frozen mud. Soldiers hold planks steady with numb hands. Officers shout encouragement that sounds more like prayer. Against all odds, thousands cross. It is a narrow escape, but do not mistake it for victory, because the real damage is already done. By this point, the army is no longer held together by discipline, but by desperation. Hunger has rewritten priorities. Survival outweighs orders.
If he finds out,
Men fall asleep standing up, and sometimes they do not wake. Eyewitness accounts describe soldiers marching beside frozen bodies, as if they were mile markers on the road home. Here is the quiet irony. Napoleon still believes he can save the core of his army. And in a sense, he does. He escapes. But the war does not. Out of the more than 600,000 men who crossed into Russia, fewer than 100,000 leave. Some historians place the number far lower. The exact figure depends on the source. But the conclusion does not change. Europe is watching. Allies who once feared Napoleon begin to question him. Enemies grow bolder. The image of invincibility, carefully built over years, cracks in a single winter. Let me ask you this. If a leader survives, but belief does not, who truly wins? The Russian campaign does not just destroy an army. It destroys an idea. And with that idea gone, the balance of power across Europe begins to shift in ways Napoleon can no longer control. Because one mistake does not always end a war immediately. Sometimes it simply starts the end. From that shattered retreat, the consequences spread far beyond Russia, like cracks racing through ice. Across Europe, old enemies begin to breathe again. Prussia, once humiliated, sees an opening. Austria hesitates, then leans away. Britain, steady and patient, tightens its grip. Historians often describe this moment as the birth of the Sixth Coalition, a rare alignment of powers who suddenly believe the same thing. Napoleon can be beaten. Here is the deeper mistake revealing itself. The invasion of Russia was not only a military gamble, it was a political one. Napoleon assumes fear will hold his empire together. He underestimates how quickly loyalty melts when confidence disappears. As the French army weakens, alliances do not merely fade, they reverse. Napoleon rebuilds an army with astonishing speed, drawing in young recruits, many barely trained. By the year 1813,
Indeed.
he is back on
I
the
heard the
battlefield
king
facing a
refused his
Europe
petition
that has learned from him. They avoid reckless attacks. They coordinate. They retreat when needed. They strike together. At the Battle of Leipzig, sometimes called the Battle of the Nations, over 500,000 soldiers collide. It becomes the largest battle Europe has seen up to that point. According to military historian Peter Hofschruer, this is where Napoleon loses not just ground, but momentum. His enemies no longer fear his brilliance. They anticipate it. Let me ask you something quietly. What happens when everyone around you learns from your mistakes faster than you do? Napoleon fights hard. He always does. But brilliance cannot replace numbers forever. By the following year, enemy armies enter Paris. The man who once redrew maps now signs his abdication, and all of it traces back to that first assumption. That one campaign would be quick. That Russia would behave like the rest of Europe. That experience alone could substitute for preparation. The war is not lost in one battle. It is lost in one belief. And as the story begins to slow, what remains is not just the fall of an emperor, but a lesson whispered through history. Power fades.
She does not look pleased
Conditions
today.
change. And certainty, when left unchallenged, can quietly
Silence, man.
undo everything. Because the most dangerous mistake is not failing to fight. It is failing to rethink. As the dust settles, history does something it often does best. It grows quiet, then reflective. Napoleon Bonaparte does not disappear immediately after his abdication. He is exiled, returns briefly, and is finally defeated for good at Waterloo.
And yet,
But by then, the outcome is no longer
cost
in
was too
doubt.
high.
The war has already been lost, not on that muddy Belgian field, but years earlier in the frozen distances of Russia. What makes this story linger is not the cold or the hunger, or even the staggering number of lives lost.
Listen to the bells.
It is how small the original mistake feels when compared
danger?
to its consequences.
leave.
Napoleon does not fail
Take this map,
because
it
he
shows the
lacks
way out.
Are you
intelligence.
certain? What about the
Quite the
others?
opposite. Historians
Listen
such as
closely.
Andrew
The plague
Roberts
has reached the next
emphasize
village.
that he
It's only a
remains one
matter
of the
of days
sharpest
before it
military
arrives here.
minds in history. He fails
hope the
because he
bishop arrives
trusts his
soon.
past success
It is a long
more
wait,
than the present
but necessary
reality.
for salvation.
He believes experience can
For
replace
by grace
preparation.
alone are we saved,
He believes
through
speed
faith,
can
and
outrun
that not of
geography.
ourselves. It
He
is the
believes
gift of
one
God.
more push will fix everything. How often do we do the same? We stay a little longer in a situation that is clearly turning against
Move the
us.
Northern Army here, we cut their
We
supply
delay the
lines.
hard
It leaves the
decision,
western border
hoping
exposed, but the
circumstances
risk
will
is
improve
necessary.
on their own.
Agreed.
We mistake persistence for wisdom and confidence for clarity. Russia never needed to defeat Napoleon in a single glorious battle. It only needed to withdraw, and let his certainty exhaust itself. According to Russian military records, this approach was deliberate. Avoid the decisive clash. Stretch the
I
enemy.
rule by divine right.
Let time and
Confirmed by
distance
this
do the
crown,
work,
my judgment
and they
stands.
did. The lesson
He is
here is not
untested,
about
Your
war
Grace.
alone. It is about limits, about knowing when strength becomes strain, about recognizing
looks
that the world
displeased.
does not owe
Did
us
you deliver the
familiar
message?
outcomes
Quiet,
just
man.
because we
Walls
have
have
earned
ears.
them
We must
before.
wait for her
Napoleon's greatest campaigns succeed because he adapts faster than everyone else. His greatest failure comes when he stops adapting, convinced that brilliance will always bend reality in his favor. There is a quiet humility hidden inside this story. Even the most powerful figures in history are undone not by ignorance, but by certainty. By the belief that what worked once must always work again. As you listen to this, perhaps late at night, perhaps with the day finally behind you, take a moment to think about the battles you are fighting. Are you advancing because it is wise, or because turning back
A long
feels
day's
uncomfortable?
labor.
History does not
I'll
judge
be
us for
glad my
retreat.
supper.
It only records whether we learned in time. Thank you for spending these moments with me and for letting this story unfold slowly in your space. If you enjoyed this journey, I hope you will return for the next one where another quiet mistake, another forgotten choice waits patiently in the past to be rediscovered. Until then, rest well and let history whisper instead of shout.